Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time to most people is the pinnacle of turtle gaming. It took the successful formula of the first arcade game and improved on it in nearly every way. Then Konami ported it over to SNES, and many people say it is the best way to play the game. Sure, you don't get the 4-player action anymore, but now you have more bosses, more levels, slightly improved controls, and the ability to play in your own home. This game was everything Turtles fans could hope for in the 90s, and the often favorite aspect of these beloved arcade games were the boss battles. You look forward the whole level to when the boss is going to appear and which favorite character from the show it's going to be. The SNES version hosted 11 bosses throughout the game, but while nearly all are classics from the show, people definitely have their favorite fights. I polled multiple retro gaming and turtle groups on who their favorite boss was in the game to come up with a definitive ranking of the fan favorite bosses in Turtles in Time. So without further ado, let's dive into the official fan ranking of all the bosses. In last place, we have a tie between two boss fights, KRANG and his spaceship and TOKKA and RAHZAR. KRANG and his spaceship, which is the second to last boss in the game, I can understand a bit. Nothing really cool happens and we barely get any KRANG action at all. He's literally encapsulated in a hovercraft, which is never seen in the comics or the show. His attacks are just trapping you in a bubble, which is annoying. His stomp move, which is annoying. And calling out his robotic minions, which is also annoying. The fight itself is somewhat lame and it's barely recognizable as KRANG if we're being honest. Totally get why KRANG pulled in at the last spot. However, TOKKA and RAHZAR I'm a bit more confused about. I thought this fight was awesome growing up. Not only did it bring in the two main villains from the second Turtle movie, but they each had opposite powers. RAHZAR could torch you while TOKKA could freeze you. Yeah, these powers aren't in the movie, but it was cool to see these opposing moves. Also, when you defeat them, they turn back into their baby forms, which is adorable and awesome. Evidently, I like this battle way more than the average player though. Perhaps fans wanted the game to focus more on the cartoon, and TOKKA and RAHZAR hadn't appeared in the cartoon at the time of the game, so maybe that's why they bumped them down a little bit lower. Either way, KRANG, TOKKA, and RAHZAR at the bottom of the fans' favorite boss battles in the game. In second to last place was a 3-way tie between the RATKING, Android Crane, and Super Shredder. This is the last title we have on this list, and I'm a bit surprised at some of these as well. I thought some of these boss fights were great. Start with the RATKING, whom you fight in the sewers on your surfboard. I love that I had him riding the foot ski because I had this toy as a kid and I loved seeing it in the action of the game. It's a cool battle where they tell you where to hit, but the RATKING really only has a few attacks, and I suppose most players liked a few more of the creative fights better, and so that's probably why they put him a little bit further down the list. I personally think this boss fight is awesome though, but this is a community ranking and not my personal ranking. KRANG in his android suit was tied for this place as well, and I can get why this one is lower on the list. The scenery is kinda for this level, and KRANG comes off looking more awkward in some of his attacks as well, especially this kick move where he just moves across the screen. Not my favorite. Poor KRANG though, 2 appearances in the game and players picked both of them to be so far down on the list. And surprisingly, Super Shredder was tied at this place as well. Super Shredder is the second time you battle Shredder in the game, and he's pretty difficult this time around, which I guess makes sense since he's the last boss and all. I personally always got annoyed with him because he can zap your entire life away, making you a regular unmutated turtle again, which is just depressing, but once again, they had to make the last boss fight challenging. Even with the difficulty though, he only has a few attacks, and between that and the difficulty, I can see the reason most players voted him in second to last place. Next up is Leatherhead, a mutant alligator who's been with the series since nearly the beginning. He's the final boss of the train stage, and I guess they picked him because he has a hat that sort of looks like a cowboy hat? Maybe. It's a stretch. However, it's a pretty fun boss fight. I like how he has several different animations from his attacks, one where he literally looks like the action figure as he scurries across the screen. He's quite a good boxer as well, but once you get the patterns down, he's not really too terrible to defeat. A fun boss, but not necessarily memorable enough to be higher on the list. Good old Metalhead. What a cool character from the Turtle universe. A robot turtle programmed to take down our heroes. I always loved the design of Metalhead and thought his Inspector Gadget type moves were pretty amazing. He's an earlier boss in the game and fairly predictable as well. However, it's a really fun fight. The animations for all his moves are top notch, and I can agree pretty well with fans putting him in the upper middle side of the list. In 4th place, we have Baxter Stockman, the scientist who has turned into a mutant fly. He is the first boss in the game and sets the tone wonderfully. He looks just like he did in the show and gives us an idea of what type of bosses to expect. He has 2 modes, one flying and the other one on the ground, and it keeps the fight fresh the entire time and is just challenging enough to get the game going. I always loved Baxter Stockman, and to see him brought to life so vividly, it pulled me into the game immediately. In 3rd place, we have Slash, who is the final boss of the prehistoric level, and what a great fit that truly was. Slash is a mutated snapping turtle, and snapping turtles are the most prehistoric looking of all the turtles out there. Equipped with his trademark crooked sword and all, Slash is one of the best looking enemies in the game. Personally, I felt his moveset was a bit limited compared to some of the earlier entries on this list, but there is no doubt that he has the look for the game. I say Slash is scoring so high because players saw how well he fit into the environment, and Slash has always been such a fan favorite. In 2nd place, we have BEBOP and ROCKSTEADY in true cartoon fashion. As the bosses of the pirate ship, we have both of them fully decked out in their best pirate attire, and it just seems so much like something they would do in the cartoon. Their dedication to this role is what pulls them in so high on the list, I'm sure of, because the fight itself is fairly basic. Very limited attacks, and animations themselves are pretty standard. Regardless though, a fantastic little boss fight for the humor and the character that it adds into the game. In 1st place, we have one of the most groundbreaking fights for its time in a turtle game, the BATTLETANK Shredder. Shredder's in the cockpit trying to shoot you and grab you with his mechanical arms while you are fighting off foot soldiers and throwing them into the foreground to hit him. This throwing of foot soldiers at the screen was the coolest thing a turtle game had done up until this point, and making it part of the boss fight as well, that was just a genius move. Fans love getting to the first Shredder battle because it's such a memorable and unique fight for the game. It's no wonder that when you see Shredder later on again, that's so disappointing, because how could they top this fight? When players think of Turtle in Time, this is the boss fight that they think about. But what do you all think? Do you agree with the majority of fans who have chosen their favorite bosses, or would you rank them a little bit differently? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, go out there, find a great game to play, just simply have a great rest of the day.